Hi ladies, welcome to my channel. My name is Heather Anderson of So Heather, and yes, I am a lifestyle influencer. I've been an influencer for over 10 years, but on my channel I have decided I'm going to start sharing videos about self-love and self-worth, along with how to deal with unhealthy, toxic relationships. I actually did a divorce video about a week and a half ago to 2 weeks ago, and I had to remove that video. I had to take it down because of legal reasons. So from this point moving forward, what I'm about to share is based on the multiple relationships that I have personally been in since I was age 16. And some of those relationships have been very toxic and very unhealthy. I'm going to be talking about how I was able to remove myself from some of these relationships. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. I'm not talking about any specific person, so you won't know who I'm talking about or referring to when I am sharing these videos, because what my hope is and what my intention is to help women just like you, because the response that I got was an overwhelming response from a lot of you, like over 800 comments of women saying, like, I've been in unhealthy relationships myself. This is helping me so much. I'm not alone. Like, the best thing I think for all of us is just to know that we're not alone. That video was only up for 1 week and it reached over 75,000 women, and I'm so grateful for that because I think everybody really needs to hear this message. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing how to break free from an unhealthy, toxic relationship. These are things that I have done in my past that have helped me do this. So I know this from experience. Like I said, I've been in multiple unhealthy relationships since I was 16 years old. Make sure you listen to the entire video, because the last tip to me, I was told by my therapist to do this. I was told by Dr. Romani, she's an amazing resource on YouTube. If you've never watched her videos, definitely look her up. I will link her channel down below, but she helped me tremendously understand these types of relationships, and she also helped me remove myself from these relationships. And actually the last tip number 10, is a tip that she shared and my therapist shared with me, and it will definitely make all the difference in the world. First of all, I want to describe why you're stuck in these relationships, or why I was stuck in these relationships. Again, I'm sharing my experience, strength, and hope. So this is a trauma bond. I don't know if you've ever heard of a trauma bond, but a trauma bond basically is an unhealthy attachment that you have to a person, right? And this trauma bond is basically like an addiction. It's an addiction as strong as a heroin addiction. The reason it's so addicting is because when the good parts of the relationship are happening, when the person is being charming and nice to you, some people call that love bombing, when they're being very nice, you get this big dose of dopamine and serotonin in your brain. And then when they're not being so nice to you, maybe you guys have a big blow up fight, then you get this chemical release in your brain of cortisol, the stress hormone. So basically your brain is constantly going back and forth from the good, feel-good chemicals to the feel-bad chemicals. And this is an addictive cycle, the same exact brain chemical, addiction that's going on when you do a drug, believe it or not. And this typically stems from a similar relationship that you had as a child, because like I mentioned in my last video, our subconscious is programmed by the time we're age 7. And so what we're doing when we're children is we're becoming attached to our caregivers, your mother, your father. So maybe you had a relationship with your mom or your dad that was similar to this trauma bond. Maybe they were heavy drinkers. Maybe they weren't around. Maybe they worked a lot. Maybe you fought a lot with one of your parents. Maybe they were abusive to you. Maybe they were emotionally unavailable. So any of these things can create that same chemical reaction going on in your brain, and that is addictive. And so basically you also see how your parents treat each other. So if your parents are volatile towards each other, if there's a lot of fighting and a lot of chaos, a lot of drinking, then that's what you think, like, okay, that's what love should look like. So you're going to grow up, which is what I did. I grew up and I chose partners that were similar to the dynamics that I saw my parents having between one another, because to me that was my blueprint for love. That was my blueprint of what marriage should look like. So this is all subconscious, which, by the way, our lives are run by our subconscious mind. I think 95% of the decisions we make are subconscious. But there are ways to break the trauma bond, okay? It's not over forever. You don't have to stay stuck in this cycle, because it is very trying on you. I know that I felt it in my body. That's another thing that I really want to promote on my channel, is that all the trauma that we have is stored in our body, and our bodies never forget it. So pay attention to, like, I had migraines, I had kidney stones, I wouldn't eat, I lost my appetite, I would have these panic attacks and rage attacks, and I would scream and cry and basically just freak out. And I'm like, what? I would keep asking myself, like, what's wrong with me? But there was nothing wrong with me. I was just stuck in this unhealthy cycle. And so anyways, that's what a trauma bond is. Leave me a comment down below if you can relate. Also, if you would like me to make more videos on this, because definitely I always love hearing from you guys. And I really want this to be like a community of women that we can all come together and be supportive for each other and help one another. So tip number 1 to break free from a toxic relationship is learning all you can about it. So Dr. Ramani is one of the best resources that I have found. She's on YouTube. She has tons of videos on this subject. Again, I will link her channel down below. I think she's like the leading expert in this subject. She is phenomenal. She definitely can relate. She's been in multiple relationships like this herself. And so that's what I did. I basically studied this subject for like 6 years, and I learned all I could about the trauma bond in this type of relationship, because that made me feel validated. It made my feelings feel validated. It made me feel not crazy. Like, I really thought I was crazy for a while because of all these feelings that I was having, and the high highs and the low lows. And this just made me feel like, okay, somebody understands what I'm doing, and there's actually a name for what's going on in my life. And so this made me feel seen and heard and validated. So number 1, learn all you can about the trauma bond and the unhealthy relationship dynamic, and it will definitely help you be able to break yourself free from that. And I also want to point out why the trauma bond is so addictive is because it's more of like intermittent. It's more like a slot machine, for example. Dr. Ramani uses this analogy. You know, a slot machine, you go gambling, you put money in it, and maybe every, I don't know, 15 times you might win some money, right? And then maybe you'll put more money in it, and then in the 5th time you'll win some money. So it's very intermittent. It is not consistent. So this is exactly how the unhealthy relationship is. The good parts are very intermittent. There is no consistency to it, and that's what makes it so addictive. There are good days and there are bad days. That's what makes it so confusing, and that's what makes us feel stuck, because we think, oh, well, there's good days. Maybe there'll be more good days than bad days. And sometimes there are, but then the bad days come, and the bad days are really bad, and they make you feel really horrible. And so that's also why it is so addictive. I just wanted to throw that in there as well. Okay, this is number 3. Tip number 3 to break free from a toxic relationship is to go no contact. So I'm going to be honest, after a very recent situationship that I was in made me realize that this can also happen while you're dating. So obviously I've been, divorced for like 1.5 years, and I've been dating, and I got into a situationship that lasted way too long, and it was definitely a trauma bond. It was definitely toxic, and I was definitely addicted to it. And the best way for me to break free from that situationship was to go no contact. What does no contact mean? That means you block the person on their phone so they cannot text you or call you. That means you block them from social media. You unfollow them on social media. You do not look at their social media page. You do not talk to them. You do not respond if they send you an email, if they leave you a voicemail, because by the way, people can leave you voicemails even when they're blocked. Just don't listen to the voicemail, because all they're trying to do is pull you back in to that toxic cycle, and you don't want that. So going no contact is the best thing for you to do. Think of it like this. It is an addiction, like I explained to you. So how hard would it be to stop doing heroin if it lied on your coffee table on a coaster for you to have to walk by every single day? It's the same thing. If you don't block the person on your phone, and they're going to be able to be texting you, or you're going to get that dopamine rush every time you get that text, or you're going to get that dopamine rush every time you see them on social media. You have to turn your brain completely off from that. So going no contact is 100% the best way to break free from these unhealthy relationships. Now, I understand if you're married to somebody and you have kids with them, this is not an option. So think of it more like going no contact emotionally from this person. Just detach completely on the emotional level if you're not able to go complete no contact. Okay, tip number 4 is to detach from the person. And again, obviously one way to do that is to go no contact. But another way to do that is to do a detachment meditation. So I love meditating. That is a really good way to get into your subconscious mind. And that's another way that you'll be able to break free from these relationships. And I love doing detachment meditations. I will link my favorite one down below. Aaron Dowdy is a really cool guy on YouTube. He has tons of meditations. I do a lot of his meditations, and he's got one of the best detachment meditations. So I really believe in order to get into your subconscious, that's really a big thing that you can do, because talk therapy is wonderful. It's great, but that doesn't really tap into your subconscious. So, journaling and meditating, really meditating in hypnosis is one of the best ways we can tap into our subconscious. And so I highly recommend doing a detachment meditation on the person that you're trying to detach from. Tip number 5 is to move your body. Like I started doing yoga. I started exercising like 5 or 6 days a week. And yes, it was because I wanted to be in shape, but it was also because I wanted to release that tension, release that stored up energy that was in my body that my body needed to release. It doesn't have to be like this hardcore workout. You can do yoga, you can go on a walk, but just set the intention that I'm going to release all negative energy and all negative thoughts out of my body, and then go do that exercise. Whether, like I said, yoga, walking, you can even take a pillow out and beat it with a baseball bat. That's releasing energy, because trust me, we hold all this trauma in our bodies, and healing occurs in our bodies way more than it does in our minds. It's gonna occur in our bodies first. We have to release it in our bodies first in order to release it from our minds. When I did the Hoffman process, that week-long emotional healing process, which takes place in California, it was phenomenal. It was a big part of my healing journey and helped me so much. I will link it down below in my description box. But that's one of the things they had us do, is a lot of experiential therapy. And one of them was literally taking a baseball bat, hitting a pillow for like 15 minutes at a time, and releasing all the anger. And whoever popped up in your mind, you would just let it happen. And then you would just hit the pillow, release the anger. And it's amazing, how much anger you will get out, and then how much better you will feel after you do that. So again, this helped me tremendously, and I think it can also help you. All right, tip number 6 to break free from an unhealthy relationship is to get yourself in a 12-step program. So for me, I went to Al-Anon. Al-Anon is a program for family members of alcoholics. I've been going to Al-Anon for about 7 years, and it has changed my life. 1000%. It is so helpful. It allowed me to surround myself with a group of people that were healthier. I got a sponsor. I worked the 12 steps. That's the important part. Don't just go to the meetings and don't get a sponsor and not work the steps, because getting a sponsor and working the 12 steps is where you're actually going to feel the healing. You're going to really bring out all the things. You're going to do lots of journaling and, just turn it over to God or your higher power or the universe or whatever it is for you. And then you're just going to kind of go through and peel back the layers of your traumas and your childhood and the wrongs that you've done to people and the people that have done wrongs to you. And you're going to go through this forgiveness thing. Like, it's pretty profound. And then every time you go to a meeting, you sit in a room and everybody shares their vulnerabilities. Maybe for like 2 to 3 minutes, you just talk about what's bothering you for the day. There's always like a topic, and it is so healing, you guys. Every time I'm feeling anxious and just like unloved and, I don't know, sad or angry or whatever, and I go to an Al-Anon meeting, every single time I walk out of that meeting and I feel better. I just feel better. I feel lighter. I feel good. And so I recommend an Al-Anon group if you do have issues with drinking, you could do AA. That's a 12-step meeting. You could go to Codependence Anonymous. That's a 12-step group. You could do, I think, Love and Sex Addicts. That's also a 12-step group. It doesn't matter which one, but just find one and try it. They say try 6 meetings before you decide if you want to go back. And honestly, this has really, really helped me. And so I highly recommend it. All right, tip number 7 is focus on you and take care of yourself. So what is self-care? I ask myself that question a lot. Is self-care like putting on a cute outfit and wearing makeup? I mean, it can be, right? That does make us feel better about ourselves. But when we say self-care in terms of like personal recovery, that really means more about like taking care of yourself, getting enough sleep, eating enough food, exercising. Exercising has been proven, specifically yoga, has been proven to decrease levels of depression and anxiety. So it's important that you're getting up every day and you're moving your body, even if it's for like 10 or 15 minutes. It's better than nothing. Also, to me, self-care and self-love means making decisions every day based on self-love. So what that means to me is, before I make a decision, I ask myself, is this something that someone would do that loved themselves? So would I get up in the morning and go work out if I loved myself? Absolutely. Would I eat a good healthy salad and a piece of salmon for lunch if I loved myself? Absolutely. Would I go back to that toxic situationship and start talking to that guy if I loved myself? Absolutely not. So when I get that urge to unblock him or to text him because I had really strong feelings for this guy, I don't let myself do it. I call a friend, I go journal, I go meditate, I go do something, a self-care act, so that I don't go back to that behavior. But guess what? I have gone back to that behavior several times, because healing isn't linear. Healing is up and down and up and down. And yes, I make mistakes. So would a person who loves themselves be hard on themselves and criticize themselves and have bad self-talk? No. I would have compassion for myself and say, it's okay. Guess what? You slipped up. You had a mistake. You made a mistake. Guess what? You're human. Guess what? You're not perfect. And guess what? That's okay. I can still love myself even if I know I'm not perfect, and even when I make mistakes. So for me, that's what self-love is. So let me know down below in the comments, what does self-love mean to you? Number 8 is to see a therapist. So talk therapy is so important, because when you share your story with another person and you say it out loud, something profound happens. And it just makes you really step into your reality and accept your reality for what it is. Because a lot of times in these unhealthy, toxic relationships, what we do, or what I did, is I sugarcoat it. I go into denial. I go into minimization. Sometimes people call this betrayal blindness. There's a really good book, I will link it down below in my description box, that Dr. Ramani recommends. It's called Betrayal Blindness. And in order for us to stay in these relationships, sometimes we do have to deny what's actually going on. And so really accepting your reality and accepting it for what it is so important when you're in these relationships, so that you don't become blind to what's actually happening to you. And seeing a therapist will help you do that. They will also give you a third party, view of what's going on, and really help you, like I said, accept reality and see things for what they are. So highly recommend, if you can afford it, seeing a therapist. If you can't afford seeing a therapist, that's okay. You can do Al-Anon, you can do any of those 12-step groups, which gives you a similar experience of talk therapy, but it's cheap, it's free. Basically, they ask for a little donation like every time you go to a meeting, and it can be like $2 or $3. So if you can't afford therapy, that's okay. You can do the 12-step program. Okay, tip number 9 is to journal. So writing things in a journal is so helpful. I have been writing in a journal for probably the last 7 years, and I'll do it. I try to do it every single morning. I don't really do it in the evenings, but here's the most important time you should journal. Whenever you get super upset and super triggered. So when I get triggered, usually it's by a romantic partner, right? I just go into, like I told you, basically a deep, like just despair and crying, and sometimes I'll scream and rage or whatever. And after I do that, because I want to get that out of my body, I want to allow myself to feel my feelings, and I want to ask myself, where am I feeling this in my body? For me, it's usually in my throat, because I was taught to push down my feelings, not have my feelings. So anytime I'm crying, I feel it in my throat first, because I'm trying not to cry. Because there were so many times as a little girl when I tried not to cry, because I was trying to be perfect, because I was trying to be okay, because I didn't want to show my feelings, because a lot of times I would get in trouble and I would be told, shut up, dry it up, stop crying. So I would try to stop crying, and I find myself still trying to do that as I'm older. I hold back my tears, and so I try not to do that anymore. I try to just let them flow. Then after I've released my feeling and I've had my feeling, I get my journal and I just write. And I don't think about what I'm going to write. I just start writing. And if you do this, it's so therapeutic, because things will spill out of your head and onto the paper that you never dreamed would come out. And you're just like, oh my gosh, wow, do I really feel like that? Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I didn't even know I thought that. Just write, and you will just freely write. And that's really your subconscious coming out onto the paper. It's so healing. I always feel better after I journal, even if it's for like 5 or 10 minutes. And then if it's something like really ugly and mean or whatever, right? If it's a bunch of negative thoughts, it's also very therapeutic to either burn it or rip it up and throw it in the trash. That's very therapeutic and always makes me feel better. So I would say definitely journal when you're having these strong urges and these strong feelings, because it will absolutely help you. I think that was tip number 8. So this is tip number 9. We've got one more left. Tip number 8 is to download the Breathe app and do a hypnosis every night before you go to bed. So I have been doing this for probably the last 3 years, and it is life-changing, because I believe that hypnosis really does get into your subconscious. And like I mentioned earlier, 95% of our decisions are based on our subconscious. And so it's important that we really work on reprogramming our subconscious in order to detach us from these unhealthy relationships. And there are hypnosis on inner child healing work, which I'm going to do a whole video on that, because that's very important in the healing process. They have self-worth and self-love meditations. I love that when they have meditations or hypnosis meditations on releasing guilt and shame. That's another really good one. So those are my 3 favorite ones. And I fall asleep to these every single night. And right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up is when your subconscious is the most programmable. So that's the best time to do it. So right before I go to bed, like I said, I have this Breathe app. I do a hypnosis on either the inner child, releasing guilt and shame, or self-love and self-worth. And it has really helped me feel better about myself. And it's so easy too, because you just basically push play and you just drift off to sleep. And while you're sleeping, your subconscious is being reprogrammed. So highly recommend this tip. Okay, tip number 10, and this is the one that my therapist told me to do. This is the one that Dr. Ramani swears by, and this is actually, like I said, one that I've gotten from her, and that is make a Aick list. So when you're really wanting to detach and remove yourself from these toxic relationships, the hardest part is when they start love bombing you and trying to pull you back in. And so when they do this, if you make your Aick list, basically what that is say the top 10 most horrible things that this person has done to you. And you write it down on a note card, and you keep a note card in your car, you keep one in your desk, you keep one in your nightstand, you keep one in your bathroom. And then every time you're going to get sucked back in, you pull out that list and you read it and you remind yourself, okay, this is why I need to leave this relationship. This is why this relationship is unhealthy for me, and that really will help you stay unstuck, because like I said, it's an addiction. It's hard to remove yourself. But if you have this list that you see and you read it every day, right when you wake up and right when you go to bed if you need to. And then even I've been out of a couple different relationships for a really long time, and I'll still have to pull them back out and read them because I still have this guilt come up. And so this will really, really help you. And again, if you read it early in the morning and right before you go to bed, it will also start to get into your subconscious. And so you don't want to always focus on this. Once you remove yourself from the relationship, you really want to start focusing on positive things and good things and wonderful things that make you feel loved and make you feel good. So this is just a temporary solution to extricate, to really remove yourself from the unhealthy dynamic. And then once you do, you don't want to focus on that negative stuff anymore, because I'm also a big believer in manifestation, and what we focus on, we bring more of into our life. So now I'm really trying to focus on the positive and the good and the healing aspects of all of this, because ladies, there is hope. I am happier now than I ever have been. I've started dating this guy. We've been on maybe like 6 or 7 dates. He seems to be a really secure, healthy, amazing, confident man. And so who knows, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But guess what? I know either way, I'll be okay. And that's the beauty of this whole thing, is really you need to focus on loving yourself first so that you can then, if you choose, love someone else. But you really can't love anyone else until you love yourself first. So I hope that you ladies enjoyed this video. Please leave me a comment down below of some more videos that you would like me to make, because again, I'm going to be publishing at least 2 videos a month on, self-love, self-worth, toxic relationships, things like that. So thank you so much for stopping by today. I so appreciate each and every one of you. And if no one has told you yet today, you are worthy, you are amazing, you are beautiful, and I love you. And I will look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.